The outcome of Ezra Bridger's plan has haunted fans since 2018. But what if I told you that Star Wars has given us enough evidence to figure out what became of him in Imperial Grand Admiral Thrawn? I've got enough evidence compiled to make an interesting case of this. My conclusion will blow your mind. Let's dive in. To catch y'all up to speed, the clip at the very beginning was Ezra Bridger enacting his last-ditch effort to drive the Empire off of his home world, Lothal. With massive success, he enlists the Purrgil in demolishing Thrawn's fleet and carrying them to places unknown through hyperspace. The thing is, this has never been resolved. We don't know where they're at. However, there are more than enough breadcrumbs and planted seeds if you know where to look. Enough breadcrumbs to give us where our heading is. Here's the evidence. Let's take a look at the sequels first. The world building in the sequel trilogy provides our upper limit. We can assume that the question has been resolved at this point, so let's think about what we do know. There's no mention of Ezra, Ahsoka, or Thrawn in the sequel trilogy. We hear Ahsoka encouraging Rey in the Rise of Skywalker, but that's irrelevant right now. Remember what Luke says in The Last Jedi, that he's the last of the Jedi religion. The Jedi religion is specific to their galaxy. He never said that he was the last Force user. There's plenty that can fit into canon based merely off of what Luke said. Keep that close. Now let's take a look at Rebels. Going back to the Purrgil, we know that they move freely through hyperspace, so they must have extensive knowledge of hyperspace and the unknown regions. It's incredibly plausible that their final destination was somewhere amongst or near Thrawn's people, the Chiss Ascendancy. We don't know much about the Purrgil, but it isn't out of the realm of possibility that when Ezra connected with them on the Chimera, that they also connected with Thrawn and latched onto his thoughts about his homeworld. This may be my less cohesive one, but let's talk about The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. When we finally got live-action Ahsoka, fans lost their minds. But most of them, myself included, started to scratch our heads. A little detail started bubbling up. We didn't know if Ahsoka's episode is before or after the Rebels epilogue. I happen to think that it was before, simply from going off of what Dave Filoni says about comparing Ahsoka to Gandalf in Lord of the Rings. We see Gandalf the Grey before we see Gandalf the White. Speculative, but maybe we see Ahsoka the White in the Rebels epilogue after we see Ahsoka the Grey in the live action. It's a reach, but hey, it kind of fits. I think Morgan Elsbeth tells Ahsoka exactly where Thrawn is. Once Ahsoka leaves Corvus, she ends up meeting up with Luke Skywalker along her journey, helps him with the foundational basis of his new school, then she goes to Lothal to inform Sabine that she knows where Thrawn is, and by proxy, Ezra Bridger. Now, for my final bit of evidence, the Canon Thrawn trilogies. We know that Thrawn is originally a part of the expansionary defense fleet of the Chiss Ascendancy. He stages in exile in order to be taken in by the Empire. He wants to observe the Empire in order to see if they are a suitable faction that can help the Chiss eliminate a dangerous threat beyond their borders, known as the Grisks. We know that the Chiss are so desperate in their fight against the Grisks. From what we know about the Grisk Empire, they kidnap young Force-sensitive Chiss females and force them to navigate their ships into Imperial space. Thrawn convinces the Emperor that this act, among everything else that they can do, makes them a threat to the Empire, because once they have the ability to find their way around, systems will fall. Thrawn also explains that the Grisk are so dangerous that they even inspire a fear-centered loyalty among their slaves. They can twist every desire you have to their will. Now, given what we know, let's put it all together. Ahsoka and Sabine will travel to the system that Ahsoka coerced out of Morgan Elsbeth. They will find Grand Admiral Thrawn in the Outer Rim. Now that the Empire is gone, he is using his underground knowledge and resources that he was privy to when he was Grand Admiral in order to build a strong fleet. Think about Soren Keyes in Alphabet Squadron. Of course, Ahsoka and Sabine will think he is reforming the Empire in his own image. In fact, he is taking advantage of the galactic political chaos to fortify the forces of his true allegiance, his home, the Chiss Ascendancy. They want to know where Ezra is, and why is Thrawn really building a fleet? Sabine, consumed in anger, goes to attack Thrawn when all of a sudden he's saved by Ezra Bridger, Knight of the Chiss Ascendancy. Thrawn has successfully presented evidence as to why the Grisk pose a threat to the galaxy at large. His crew on the Chimera know firsthand how dangerous they can be after all these years. I imagine that Ezra and Thrawn had been wrapped up in a Grisk conflict during the events of the original trilogy, and after seeing what they do to their captors and what they've done to the young Chiss navigators, he agreed to side with Thrawn, the lesser evil. I think it's necessary to drop a Littlefinger quote here. We only make peace with our enemies. That's why it's called making peace. Ezra's fondness of preserving and connecting with life will compel him to empathize with the Chiss. They are not friends, but the absolute brutality that the Grisk will throw at the galaxy will unite enemies to a common cause. Thrawn's mission to save his people from this threat will compel Ezra to be an ally. He's their best chance at achieving the greater good. Now, the Chiss don't deitize the Jedi the way the galaxy at large does, but Ezra's willingness to defeat the Grisk will open up the Chiss perception of the Force, and they will ask him to stay and train their navigators to use the Force for more than just navigation. From there, Ahsoka and Sabine will reluctantly accept this new alliance between Thrawn and Ezra. They'll see for themselves the threat the Grisk pose, and they will stand side by side to stop it. From there, I think Ahsoka and Ezra will start teaching a new generation of Force users among the Chiss. I think Sabine could stay as well, because, hey, we all kind of ship them together. This theory would allow Ezra, Ahsoka, and Thrawn to exist in the same universe as Luke Skywalker and have completely new problems to deal with that Luke doesn't have to be a part of. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to see Luke involved. But with the magnitude of the Grisk conflict, I feel that it would have been mentioned in the sequels. There may be some cameo work done, but I think Luke will have enough on his plate of rebuilding the Jedi Order in his galaxy. This threat is a way for Dave Filoni to stamp his own odyssey in Star Wars, to work within his own space and timeline. What do you think? To what extent do you think the Chiss ascendancy will be involved here? How will the world between worlds come into play? Please comment your thoughts. I'd love to know. And also, please drop a like and subscribe as well. I'd be very grateful. Take care, God bless, and as always, may the Force be with you, always.